Welcome to Previously on X-Men, the podcast that looks back on X-Men comics, movies, shows, characters, and more. You can find more about this show and others like it at our network's website, radiomeanwhile.com, where we have a forum for you to share your thoughts on this and upcoming episodes. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Previously on X. And please rate, subscribe, and share this show on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. I'm Eric Mickles, known online as Dust vs. Tweak, and with me is Hilary Gunning.
That's me.
Today is one of our character spotlights.
Very first.
With this episode focusing on the Scarlet Witch.
Yes.
Wanda, whatever her last name is at the time, I guess.
Yeah, Wanda, whatever.
I know her as Wanda Maximoff.
That's what I always think.
But it's changed over time.
Yeah, it
and then
changes.
changed back.
Yeah, when I was researching it, this is off topic based more sort of.
Is it about Scarlet Witch?
It's about Scarlet Witch.
It's on topic.
As I was researching it, it was hard to research to begin with because it's all over the place. Yeah. But things kind of like dwindled toward the end of whatever article I was reading, like of any of the articles, where they'd be like, and then this happened, and then so it'd be like, is that how it is now, or are you saying it has changed in some way? So yeah, I don't know what the current status is.
Hilary is the one.
I am the one
informing us.
I have chosen the character.
She has chosen the character and done most of the research.
I feel like I also have to defend my choice of the character since she's not strictly speaking an X-Man.
Well, yeah, we'll get into that as well. I have to say, I think the first time I even saw the character, I don't know if it was in the animated show, because she's in one episode in the 90s animated.
Two, I think.
Is she?
I've only seen one of them, but I've seen that there are two. And
then she plays a pretty prominent role in Ultimate X-Men, which I started reading as like one of the first comics I started reading, where they rebooted the X-Men and everything, because Wanda and Quicksilver were both still in the Brotherhood of Mutants. Yeah. So that would have been like my first maybe comic interaction with her. And then I guess X-Men Evolution would have been after that. Yeah. And that's outside of that, I know I was first starting out until the whole House of M stuff. I didn't read much Scarlet Witch stuff. Yeah. Because she has gone off on her own from the X-Men titles.
Right, yeah. So, first appeared in X-Men number 4.
Yes.
And she was a bad guy for the X-Men.
Yes.
She was working for Magneto. And always very hesitant about that. Like she felt indebted to him. Yeah. Have you read any of those early stuff? Because I pounded through a bunch of the very first issues.
Read a bunch. I read you remember the Essentials again? Yeah. They did one that I read that had like the first 20 issues of the original Stan Lee and everything run. So I read that. Didn't love it. Yeah. But
yeah, it's very funny to be focusing on Scarlet Witch when you're reading through those things, because she spends almost all of her time either mooning over her brother Pietro, cautioning people against fighting.
Boy, yeah,
like
Jean,
she spends half the time just being like, "Boys, let's not fight.
Yeah,
come on."
She outdoes Jean as the girl role in the 60s, as being cast as the girl. She
might as well be wearing like an apron.
Yeah, well, I mean, most of her early costumes are like either the big green cloak, I think, or like bathing suits.
Yeah, it's all bathing suits. Yep.
I was reading the book I have called Creators on X-Men, where Tom DeFalco goes around and interviews people, and he starts with Stan Lee, and Stan Lee talked about creating Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, and he said he had written so many like reluctant heroes that he wanted to try his hand at writing reluctant villains.
It's pretty interesting, and it's an interesting thing for that to be their attitude out of the gate. Like you first introduce them, they have these roles, but like already they're not cool about it.
They're not. Yeah, she's not happy. I can't remember if Quicksilver's happy or not.
He's not. He's a weird character though. He spends the entire time
twins
defending. Yeah.
Hilary's a twin.
Twins aren't really
Took
like
her a second
this,
to remember that.
Everybody. I know. I was like, why are you saying that? Yeah. He's very like grandiose and like, how dare you talk to my sister? Yeah. But, like, neither of them cares about any of the missions that Magneto sends them on, and Magneto is such a jerk to them. A profound jerk to them.
Yes. Early Stan Lee Magneto is not great.
Yeah. Also, at one point, he uses telepathy.
Yeah, he had early telepathy, and he could alter people's minds with magnetism. His powers were all over the place at the beginning.
Interesting.
Very
interesting. Anyway,
Scarlet Witch.
That's a side
thing.
She
started on the Brotherhood.
She starts in the Brotherhood, and then she ends up switching to the Avengers. Yeah. That's in Avengers 16.
Right.
which I thought was interesting because she starts out as a bad guy for the X-Men and switches to the Avengers. Rogue starts out as a bad guy for the Avengers and switches to the X-Men.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of a fun random thing. But anyway.
I haven't read any old Avengers comics.
Yeah, I've just read the few that I did for this. And they're actually not bad. Okay. As far as showcasing her. It's really funny because the way that she and Pietro, who they're always, they're together, always. Right. And they are together. Yes. And the way that they join the Avengers... is they hear that the Avengers let someone else in. They let Hawkeye in. Who was a criminal at first. Who I guess was a criminal. Yeah. Like he waltzed into the mansion and they were all like, Hawkeye, oh no! And I was like, oh, I guess he was bad at some point. They hear about that, like in the newspaper or something. Yeah. And then they write a letter, like a to whom it may concern letter, telling the Avengers that they would like to be considered for this position. Well, it was the 60s. They send it in, and then they get an interview with the Avengers. Tony Stark picks them up at the airport, and they have an interview. Is it still like a full Avengers team? Because I know that the way it happens is that, I guess is it Captain America? It's two people who are missing. Captain America and Thor, I think, are missing, and most of the Avengers don't know where they are. Okay, and then there are three left. It's like this. It's Hawkeye, Tony Stark. Hawkeye hasn't come yet. It's Tony Stark. And Wasp. Yeah, that sounds right. And one other person that I can't remember. Giant Man? And they're lounging around a table and they're like, with these other guys gone, maybe we should just all take a leave of absence. What do you think about that? And so then that gets them the idea of hiring new Avengers. Yeah, you just hire Avengers. Just hire some new ones and then they'll go on vacation. Yep. It'll be fine. So that's how Scarlet Witch turns into a good guy with How do you Pietro. Explain this time you were with the Brotherhood and here from 61 to 63? I was on drugs. I don't know. Yeah. So anyway, that happens. So then she becomes a good guy. And beyond that, she doesn't really... She never works with mutants. She never is on a mutant team. Yeah. She's never an X-Man. She's never in any of those teams. Yeah, she's always... never joins X Factor or X-Force or anything. She's just basically right from then she's just an Avenger. Yeah. She's one of the strongest mutants in the Marvel Quicksilver universe. Goes back. Quicksilver seems to jump back and forth a little bit more. She hangs out with the Avengers, leaves the Avengers, goes to the West Coast Avengers. She's always either Avengery or by herself. Right. So she doesn't join the X-Men, but she profoundly impacts several of the stuff that's important, I think, is her relationship with the Vision. Yeah. And her giving birth of twins. Yeah. And also finding out, I think it was Steve Englehart who wrote... I could be wrong about this, but somebody decided her powers, she had been given magic powers on top of her mutant powers. Yeah, it's her storyline has changed multiple times. Originally, the basic idea, I think, if you take Scarlet Witch from now and trace it all the way back, right. The idea is that although sometimes they say she's not a mutant at all, right. But let's go a step back. When she is a mutant, yes. She was born with this hex power. Hex powers, yeah. But she was in a mountain. She was born in a mountain. Wendigo Mountain, yeah. Yeah, which had magical energy and that imbued her with also some magical power. Well, when she was raised by a cow. It's all insane. Yeah, Bova. That's right, Bova. Yeah, Stan Lee didn't really they just said it was hex powers. Yeah. And I think other writers, I don't know if it was Stan or other writers who went, it's probability based. Yeah. She can change the probability of which, as we talked about, it's cool in all the books. Yeah, it's on the book show. I prefer. Yeah. And actually, I sort of feel when you have her in the cartoons, that's what they seem to prefer that. Well, too. It's a definable power that you can understand. You can say oh, I changed the probability that this wall's going to fall over on you now. And it's interesting because crazy extreme stuff will happen. Yeah. But technically there is some probability that would happen and she increases that probability. And it's not luck based. It's not and it's one of those things that you can be well, she can't do this because that's not a probability thing. Right. But then, because of the magic stuff, I don't know if it's because they called her Scarlet Witch. Yeah, I think, Or just it was so undefined, maybe in the comics. Yeah, but yes, when you make her a mutant. they like to...
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's another interesting thing. This is going to bounce all over the place because my research was insane. Looking into Scarlet Witch is nuts. Like, there's no information about her online. You know how sometimes you Google something, like, you're like, the internet will know because the internet knows all. Right. And then, like, it doesn't have the information you're looking for, and it kind of breaks your brain a little bit. That happened to me 1,000 times while I was researching her. I Googled Scarlet Witch and the X-Men. Nothing.
Well, yeah, I mean, she didn't have...
Nothing.
Yeah.
But her storyline intersects with them constantly.
Yes.
You'd think someone would have been like, here are the instances in which that happens.
Yeah. I just wanted to talk about the Vision stuff, like that, I think it's the 70s stuff. Steve Englehart took over writing her in the Avengers.
She falls in love with him.
Yeah, her and Vision the robot fall in love and get married and everything. And I think people kind of remember Steve Englehart's writing of Scarlet Witch to be better than it had been. She wasn't so much the girl, but she was more independent now. Yeah, so they get married. They have 2 kids, but he's a robot. So it's determined that she had the kids through magic.
Right.
But then John Byrne, I think it was John Byrne, came in and wrote the Vision Quest storyline, which ruined the Vision, got them divorced, and then the magic was destroyed, and so, or like was demonic or something, and so her twins were gone.
Right.
And I just wanted to, because that plays in a big role.
Yeah,
about
it definitely does.
Basically, both her big things that come in like in the early 2000s.
Yeah, that's how she ends up really impacting the mutant universe.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's because her like magic mentor or whatever, Agatha. That's I was talking about in the brand new, not brand new, the 2015 series.
Yeah, 3 volumes.
There's a ghost, and I'm pretty sure it's that Agatha. Yeah. So she was like her mentor or something.
Taught her witchcraft,
and she's the one who discovered that these kids that Wanda had, she had actually sort of conjured out of her own like wanting to have kids, and they had some demonic connection. Like there was a demon that was like. Yeah. That was like
there are a lot of weird demon names when you look into Scarlet Witch's history.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then so she like wiped them out of existence. Agatha did, and then like wiped Wanda's memory. And every time I read anything about this, it's always like, so that was fine.
Yeah, the late 70s and early 80s were a rough time for certain female Marvel characters. Her and Captain Marvel, or Carol Danvers. Yeah, oh my gosh. Especially having kids. Okay, so I think this is where my experience with Wanda in the comics starts happening outside of Ultimate X-Men, because I guess we shouldn't talk too much about Ultimate X-Men, but again, like that rebooted the X-Men in like 2001 or 2002 in the comics with a new line, and it started all over from scratch. So they were in the Brotherhood of Mutants, and later they joined the Ultimates, that versions of Avengers, but they kind of stay with the whole Ultimate X-Men line and pretty much all the way until the Ultimate line ends. They go back a few more times. Yeah. But okay, so Avengers Disassembled happens.
Yep, Avengers Disassembled, and she disassembles them.
Yeah. So was she possessed at this time? I read something that said she was possessed, but I remember her just going a little crazy.
I think she just goes crazy. It's a whole thing because she remembers, because Wasp accidentally
makes fun of her.
Tells her, she's like, I can't believe you wanted to have 2 kids, and she's like, what?
Oh, yeah. Way to go,
the
Janet.
Memory wiped, and then she goes and figures it all out. And I think it breaks her brain a little bit, but then you see her interacting with the Avengers when the stuff that she apparently is doing is happening, and she seems completely unaware.
Yeah.
So she tears them apart. She turns Tony into a drunk in front of the UN.
Yep.
She has like the Kree come and destroy the mansion, and then like Vision comes and like crashes
she does something. She makes She-Hulk go savage, and who tears apart Vision. She kills Jack of Hearts.
Oh, that's the first thing. That's right. The first thing is Jack of Hearts. She resurrects Jack of Hearts.
Okay.
Who just appears in like weird skeletal form and explodes and kills Scott Lang.
Right. Yes.
So that's the first thing. Then over at the UN, Tony Stark is all of a sudden drunk and like loses his job and is insane. And then the Vision comes with the shuttle and lands it directly in the mansion, and the Kree come, and it's just like everything that could possibly happen happens all at once, and they're like, what the frick is happening? And then Doctor Strange shows up and is like, I I wonder if you guys know anybody who has kind of an unstable past and like infects
magic
the
abilities.
magic.
Yeah.
What? Who does that sound like? Anybody?
Yeah.
And they're like,
well, Thor's
what?
off world.
No. What?
Yeah.
No. And then they figure it out.
Yeah. This is not, as far as I know, I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty certain people hated this storyline as it was happening, and I do not think Avengers Disassembled is remembered well.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it was very interesting. I can understand that because it really does tear them apart.
I think people were excited when Bendis did the whole, like, new Avengers afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
Where they, Spider-Man and Wolverine joined, and it's like, that was a big seller, but I think... I remember reading reviews and people not being thrilled about what was happening in Disassembled.
Yeah, I would be surprised if they were.
Yeah.
Because it goes nuts. And especially if you don't know where it's going.
Yeah.
Like, I read it after I had read House of M and whatever's after House of M. And so I know, like, that it's kind of worth it for, like, the crazy stuff that happens. Like, it's the groundwork for all kinds of drama that I enjoy. Yeah, as it happens, I could see people being like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Are they insane?
Magneto comes at the end and takes her away to Genosha.
She's, because Doctor Strange, like, wipes her. He's like, she's alive, but she's not her anymore.
Yeah.
And then, Magneto comes and takes her away.
Yeah.
And he wants Xavier to help her, and he won't.
Yeah.
He's like, nah.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on at the time.
Yeah, that was weird. I remember reading that. It's funny because I read them all out of order. But I remember way back reading that and him being like, no, she's too dangerous or whatever. And it's just very unlike him.
Well, this is where her powers change again. And now they're reality warping powers.
Yeah,
and I think
they're crazy.
So, I'll get into this more later, but I think this is where... Like, you can get into all the stuff about the kids being magic-based and disappearing and marrying robots and finding out her and Quicksilver are the son and daughter of Magneto and everything. And, like, the character is still salvageable. I think this is where, during Disassembled, she starts becoming damaged goods to the point that it would almost be better never to use her again. And there are other characters that happens to. But this is where things just go, like, what's your long-term plans for said character? Yeah. Because, you're right. It leads right into House of M, like right after. So you're a bigger fan of House of M than I am, so go ahead.
I really like House of M. I think I just think that kind of thing is really interesting. Like, it's basically a big what if. Like, like, you just get to go through all of the different... I really love how it starts, where she says something.
She's trying to bring her kids back because now she can remember them.
Yeah.
And so she's trying to bring her kids back. And is it Doctor Strange or Xavier who's trying to stop her from doing that?
It's at least Xavier. It might be both.
Okay, yeah, they're trying to stop her from doing that, but she keeps trying to, like, give birth again to her babies.
Right. Yeah, and she's just delusional. Like, she's not trying to be evil. I think she's just like, her brain is broken.
And then the X-Men and Avengers talk about they might have to kill the Scarlet Witch.
They might have to kill her, and the mutants are not having that.
Yeah, so they go off to go maybe do that, or not do that.
Or not, yeah.
And she changes everything to the House of M universe.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and the moment that happens is fun, because, like, you zoom in on Spider-Man, and it's just, like, his spidey sense starts tingling, and then it just all goes white, and all of a sudden he's asleep. And is it MJ?
I think he's married to Gwen. Yeah.
Yeah, Gwen would make sense.
Yeah. A lot of them get what they, like, wanted.
Yeah.
Because Wolverine is the character who realizes everything's wrong, because he gets to remember everything, which means everything that he couldn't remember. Like, he gets to remember his origin and everything, and that means he remembers how the world used to be.
Right.
So, he goes off and tries to find people. Yeah.
Yeah. I just really enjoy walking through that whole story. But basically, they one by one sort of, like, figure out that this isn't the way it's supposed to be.
It's 8 parts.
And so and it goes through different series, doesn't it?
I liked a few of the, I think the main series is fine, but I think the rest of the other issues just kind of explore the world. I don't remember them having been required reading. I remember kind of liking some of the other the lesser series I read did some interesting stuff with it, but... Yeah, I don't remember the X-Men stuff being... There were a lot of reality-hopping books and storylines happening at the same time, and they would just pop into House of M and not realize they were in 616 universe.
Oh, that's funny.
And just being like, oh, we're in a new crazy place, and then leaving, yeah. So,
that's funny.
Yeah, that was a weird time.
Is it right after that? Like, they go after her, they get her to fix it. Is it immediately after that the No More Mutants thing happens?
Well, it's during that. It's during the Magneto... everybody thinks Magneto convinced Scarlet Witch to do it.
But it was Quicksilver.
It was Quicksilver. And Magneto... This is one of those things I hate about Bendis, where he just decides certain characters do things even though it never led up to it. So Magneto's like, I would never do this. It's like, yes, you would.
That's exactly the kind of crap
totally.
You do.
If you, yeah.
You're just mad you didn't think of it.
Yeah, no kidding. So Magneto kills Quicksilver, and that makes Scarlet Witch very upset.
Yeah.
Who brings Quicksilver back to life, and then says this is all because they're mutants. She's sick of being mutants. No more mutants. And that's when, the world goes back to normal, except there are only 198 mutants left. Every other mutant has lost their powers. Right.
But they all remember the normal world, and all of a sudden they don't have powers.
Yes, I think a lot of them also still remember... I remember Spider-Man being very upset that he remembers being married to Gwen Stacy.
That's true, yeah.
And so he's lost her again.
Again!
Yeah. This might be the third time for him, so...
Jeez. Yeah. Poor Spider-Man.
So... But then she's doesn't have any powers. Because Magneto, Quicksilver, and her are
There's
now...
something weird. She has like a... No, I'm thinking of the other... During House of M, it's like she has a different person's body or something.
Maybe. I can't remember.
Anyway, yeah. So nobody has them, and then that leads into the first mutant being born.
Messiah Complex storyline. But
so like she is the catalyst for all these huge things.
Decimation, which was like what they called it right after, even though decimation means like 10%. So it was always kind of, people were confused, like, so what? Shouldn't there only be 10% of the mutants left, or only 10% lost their powers? It was confusing. It was a rough time. This is actually, this is when I stopped reading the monthly X-Men comics for a little bit, because I didn't like that idea.
See, you and I are just gonna we're just gonna fight over Bendis comics.
Maybe
always.
I think this was actually an editorial decision. I think they decided that there were too many mutants, and that they kept using the excuse that they wanted the X-Men to go back to being the minority and being persecuted, and Grant Morrison's run had kind of made it too many mutants and starting to lead them to the whole like dominant species kind of storylines, and Marvel didn't like that anymore. And so I don't think this was like Bendis's like grand plan. I think maybe he was just the writer to do it. I mean, he was definitely still high on like their top writer and everything at the time. But yeah, I wasn't thrilled with the whole like everybody's losing their powers and stuff. I eventually came back and everything, but mainly because of Messiah Complex. Once they started looking like they were going to start fixing it. But it was a bad time.
Once you see the arc, it all kind of starts to be worth it.
Right. But this is how I think at this point Scarlet Witch, she ruined, possibly killed so many lives. Like there are probably some mutants whose powers were keeping them alive and are now dead.
Yep.
And she did it because she was mad at her dad. And it kind of just makes, ever since then, anytime she shows up, so she joins the Uncanny Avengers, which was recent, which was a joining. Captain America's like, I can't remember what he called it, but it was a joining of mutants and Avengers to show like a united front to after the Avengers versus X-Men. He wanted to be like, look, I'm sorry I haven't stood up for mutants enough. Let's bring them back. Let's bring everybody together. And so she's on that team, and so is Rogue. And she keeps picking fight. Rogue and her keep fighting. And if you think I ever side with Scarlet Witch in those fights, so every time she said something, and she'd like, what are you guys doing? I'm like, you better shut up, Scarlet Witch, because you've ruined everyone's life.
Yeah, I'm surprised that she would bother being on teams again, or that they would bother putting her.
I mean, I think it's just one of those things where they just want to be like, well, she's better now, but it's one of those things. It's just like, but
well, in the 2015 one, she's sort of like on her own, and I think that works better. It's fine that she's like mentally healthy now or whatever, but I think it works better for her to be like, I'm just gonna kind of try to make the world better on my own.
Yeah,
and not
so
bug people.
I read that first volume, and that's I remember you talking about that again on the All the Book Show episode of where we talked about X-Men, where now her powers are just straight up,
they're just magic.
Witchcraft.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how much if you saw this or anything during the Axis storyline, which is a stupid storyline. She does something, so it's only going to damage people with her bloodline.
Oh, I hadn't read about that.
And it affects Quicksilver, but it does not affect Magneto.
Oh, and they've discovered.
And now they discovered that And so, but leading up to Magneto being their parents, I think that was like early 80s in something. But like there was still, they did like 2 possible different sets of parents for her, and then Magneto.
Yeah.
And now it's right back to the thing, which is funny because they do the same thing with Polaris, where it's like she's his daughter, she's not his daughter, and so now they're saying, now the retcon is they're not his children and they're not mutants. They were experimented on by the High Evolutionary, and her powers are just straight up magic now. Yeah,
I don't know why they... There are a lot of things that I find interesting about the way they mess with her character. The parentage thing, I do not understand why they go so nuts with it.
I don't know. I guess they just... Maybe because it just wasn't defined, but nobody's parentage is really defined in the 60s.
Right, exactly.
So it's...
It sort of seems like once you settle on, they're Magneto's illegitimate children, that seems fine. Yeah. Like, let's just run with that.
Well, okay, so that's... most people... I think Marvel has denied it, but most people agree that this was probably because Disney and Fox each own the rights, because they're mutants. They started in the X-Men, but they've spent most of their publishing life in the Avengers.
Yeah.
And so it was agreed by both Fox and Disney that each could use Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver in their movies, but the X-Men movies could never mention them being Avengers, and the Marvel movies could never mention them being mutants and or Magneto's children. Yeah. And so in the comics, they were like, all right, well, she's not.
Yeah, that seems unnecessary.
Now Disney owns Fox, so now I'm just expecting another retcon. Yeah, it's like, my spell was flawed.
Hilarious. Yeah, that's funny, too, because when Marvel was going bankrupt in the 90s... They moved the Avengers into a different continuity.
Yes, the heroes were born.
Where Scarlet Witch and all of them weren't mutants anymore. Yeah. And then they went back. Yeah. And I just thought that was really funny because it fits so well with what happened with the movies.
But so now she's a much bigger character in the movies than her brother, who only made it through one movie.
Oh, that's right. They killed him off.
Spoilers for Age of Ultron.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they did.
Yeah. But... Yeah, I mean, her powers are so different in these movies, too.
Yeah, they're sort of a mix between, like, a mutant-y kind of power and magic. But she doesn't, like, do incantations or anything. It seems kind of like a...
Telekinesis
like a shiny telekinesis. Yeah. Like, telekinesis with sparkles.
She messed with their minds in...
That's right,
Age of Ultron. But then everything else since has just been, like, telekinesis.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's... fine, I guess, but it's not really...
They give her... The most thing that I like about that is that they give her the level of power that I want them to. Okay. Which is nice. Yeah. Like, they don't skimp on her abilities.
She's a pretty big deal now. Like, everybody knows who Scarlet Witch is.
Yeah, everybody knows... And it's appropriate that they know her through the Avengers. But I always knew her... And I never talked about my history with the character. Oh. The reason... I think the first thing that I really latched onto her with was X-Men Evolution. Yeah. Like, I had known about her before, but never really, just like, I hadn't heard the name before kind of thing. The 90s... And then she's in X-Men Evolution, and that really kind of got me more interested in her.
The 90s cartoon had an episode where Quicksilver and her go to basically, I think, the High Evolutionary, and they find out Magneto's their father, and so it's like a parentage episode.
Which I don't think I've ever seen.
Really?
I started watching it, and it was, like, interesting, but it wasn't anything that was familiar to me.
I might have only watched it once or twice. But that's like pretty classic, comic accurate Scarlet Witch. But then Evolution introduces her I think later, because Quicksilver is there from the beginning.
In the second season that she appears.
And it's kind of like a funny deal. It's like, it's my sister, and she's basically like, she's a goth. She's a goth design.
She's like a punk goth.
Yeah. But her power, I can't remember, her powers are basically what they're supposed to be?
I think so, yeah. They get a little lazy later on, where they get kind of more like, she can just do whatever. Yeah. But yeah, I think the idea is the probability thing. I
remember the episode where she goes to live at the house being kind of funny, because doesn't she start, like, the Brotherhood house, because doesn't she start, like, tearing it up, and they're all, like, freaking out, and things are just being thrown at them?
Yeah, I think so.
I remember, like, the Brotherhood living in their own little, like, halfway house was so funny to me at times. But then she's also in Wolverine and the X-Men.
Yeah, she is, and I legit have no memory of that. Well, I watched that in the last, like, year or so, and I do not remember her being in it.
Well, she's just on Genosha the whole time. Oh, okay. And I think most of her interactions are with, like, both Magneto and Nightcrawler. I think she's kind of like Nightcrawler's got a thing for her in that show.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't remember.
I've only watched that show once, so I don't have like vivid memories of it. But she's in all of the cartoons. Now.
Yeah, it's nice when the cartoons do it, or like Ultimate X-Men. Whenever somebody's like redoing the X-Men or making their own version of the X-Men, she's always there, and she's always like in the original Brotherhood, and she's important, and like she has her power. It's just it's the mainstream comics that have just been like, no, we don't care about her with the X-Men or the mutants. Yeah, which is strange.
She does. She feels very integral to the X-Men, but they don't treat her quite that way because she's an Avenger. Like that's her main story. She's
a lot like Beast for me, where like I was just reading so many of the like Claremont era 70s and 80s X-Men comics that I didn't even see Beast forever because he was Avenger as well. Yeah. So like I knew these were characters. I'm like, oh, are they going to show up? And they would just show up on like a TV screen or something. I'm like, are these characters? So
X-Men.
Yeah, she's also in X-Men Legends 2: Rise of Apocalypse.
Yes. Revitalize.
That's her. Yeah, I don't think I used her too much. Because,
we used her constantly
because her powers are like she creates crates and heals and stuff.
Yeah, we didn't. We basically only like you can switch in and out the characters on your team, and we would switch her in when we needed her to heal. Like she heals herself and she heals the team. Other than that, her powers aren't great in that game.
Yeah, I just remember like I'm boring. I just want the cool offensive powers, so I had Nightcrawler a lot because he could just be all over the screen. But yeah, that was a big deal because 2 you get to play as some of the Brotherhood. So,
yeah. I love Legends. Yeah, I think I switched to her from Jean. Can you not play as Jean in 2? I can't remember. There was some reason that I didn't play as her as much. Because she was my go-to character in the first Legends. So she was in all 3 cartoons. She's been in those major comics. She was mentioned in X2.
She's on the computer screen, yeah. It's weird that like Fox and Disney had this big fight over these characters, but the movies never use her. They use Quicksilver.
Yeah, well, but they might have.
That's true. They were hinted. There was like an homage, I guess, where I think they cut it out where Quicksilver's watching Magneto's speech in Days of Future Past, and I don't think you can tell as much, but there's a girl on his lap. Yeah. It's his sister, and she's kind of dressed in like princessy clothes, and I think it's supposed to, but they're like pinkish red. So I think they're supposed to be like, oh, like the Scarlet Witch.
Well, it's in the Rogue cut, I think, or maybe it's in a cut scene.
Oh, maybe that scene is in the yeah. Okay,
you can see it somehow. Yeah. I think what it is he tells the girl to go bug her older sister. Oh. So the sister off screen
is because they're twins. So
is supposed to be Wanda.
Yeah, it's strange.
And I think the person who made the movie, who made Days of Future Past,
Bryan Singer.
I guess it was Bryan Singer, said like, she's talking about that.
So but it's
there's like these glancing connections in the movies for her as well. Yeah.
So what are your overall thoughts, especially after doing all this research and reading some of these older stuff?
Yeah.
I've never read Vision Quest. Apparently, it's not great.
I haven't read that one.
Yeah. But I don't know.
I haven't seen very much with her and Vision. Yeah. I've only seen, basically, like, the aftermath.
Yeah. I like the Avenger characters in their own books, but I tend not to really like Avenger comics themselves. Yeah. I read them because that's usually how I need to stay up to date with like the Marvel Universe, but I've never really like loved Avenger comics, so I don't know if I'm ever gonna really go back. But you said they weren't so bad, the 60s ones?
The early ones, yeah. When she's in the Brotherhood of Mutants in the X-Men comics, she's very, housewifey. Right. But once she hits the Avengers, they do seem like they're doing some
they have a butler in the house. They don't need her to... Sit down, Wanda. Jarvis will do it.
She, as a character, she's more forceful. Like she's very aware of her own power, which is nice. And she comes in and saves the day a bunch of times, and like all the men fail, and she comes in and is like, "Let me take care of this." She has this one line in an early one that I wrote down because I liked it so much. It's something like, with now that my hex power is back to full strength, I fear no man, or something like that. And I was like, sweet, I love this lady. But so that's very, very early in her run, as that's like the first couple issues.
So what did you say your first experience with her was again?
X-Men Evolution.
Okay, so then here's my question. Along with the, like, what's our overall thoughts on this character with all this information and everything, what is it about the Scarlet Witch that makes her a favorite of yours in general?
Yeah, it's Scarlet Witch is very interesting for me. Like, as I try to answer that question, because I'm not really sure. Because I didn't really realize where I first got interested in her until I started looking into it and being like, why do I care about this character? And I think it was X-Men Evolution. The thing with her character in X-Men Evolution is that it just feels like there's backstory. And there's stuff that, like, people who read comics would know about her that I didn't know. And so it was always this like, mysterious, like, I wish I knew more about Scarlet Witch.
Right.
And that's it. And I think it's because she disappears from X-Men and goes straight to Avengers, and I never read any Avengers. Yeah. I was only interested in the X-Men. Yeah. So she was always this, like, fringe person that I never understood. But again,
if you're watching or experiencing any X-Men media outside the comics, she's always there.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
but with, like, weird backstory that's, like, implied.
She shares her Wendigo Mountain stories and stuff, but you're like, okay, but where is this?
So, like, what? Who? Yeah. Where? Why? Yeah. So she's just always been someone I'm very interested in, and sort of loosely felt like I would never understand.
Right.
And now I think I do. I think I have a good handle on her story and everything. But yeah, it's an interesting feeling because it was always so, like, kind of meandering interest in her. And I think, the process of researching her just sort of, like, vindicated my decades of feeling like I could never fully understand her, because it was work. Yeah. Trying to slog through everything and piece everything together. She's like a living example of the nonsense that comics can be. Yes. Because she goes all over the place and she impacts so many different things that, like, she pops up everywhere, but she's been doing stuff in all these other comics that you never read because they have nothing to do with the one that she's in now. So you have to...
It's not even, like, they were like, she's in love with a robot, but that's not complicated enough. So now there's a love triangle between the robot, her, and Wonder Man, who is a living embodiment of energy. So
and he's like the map. He's like the mind map of Vision.
Okay.
So he, like, loves Wanda too, but he pretends he doesn't. It's a whole crazy thing. Yeah. And also, like, that's just sort of like people in the Avengers feel like her whole relationship with Vision is weird. But for the most part, it's just like, so Wanda and Vision are in love. They got married. Yeah. They had twins. Like, you just sort of, like, accept it. I don't know. It's all crazy. She's very weird.
Yeah, she's definitely... I guess for me, like, when I say, like, that's just where it is. Like, if tomorrow, like, Marvel's like, hey, Eric, we heard your podcast. Come write X-Men for us. I would never even ask.
Is that going to happen?
No. Maybe. Hey, Marvel, I'm open to it. There wouldn't even be part of me that's like, okay, but what's Scarlet Witch doing right now? Can I bring her? Because she's just somebody whose whole history is just so complicated. Yeah. But also, because of House of M, because of Disassembled, and even in Children's Crusade was also kind of frustrating. That was a Young Avengers thing. Because her children come back. I guess we forgot to mention that. They're real now. They're Young Avengers. They're Wiccan and Speed. Speed. Yeah. So Speed and Wiccan. And so Wiccan has her magic powers. And Speed has her brother's powers as being super fast. Yeah, that's
sort of how genetics work.
Yeah.
It works.
And he also has white hair and everything. But I mean, I guess if she was making them magically, she's just going to, like, base them off of what she knows.
Yeah, it's very... Yeah, I only very lightly touched on that. Like, you're absolutely right that she's damaged goods at this point. But I just feel like there's something about her character, just, like, as like a boiled down unit that has a lot of potential that's really interesting. Like, she's just different than any of the other characters in that universe. Like, in the way that she, like, spans different groups. And just in her, like, manner now, not originally when all of the women were exactly the same. Right. But, like, now she's just got this different kind of energy to her that I think is really interesting.
A magic energy.
Yeah. She's a mutant. She's an Avenger. She's got the magic, so she's connected to Doctor Strange. She just, like, she's everywhere. Yeah.
I think the problem when I say she's damaged goods is it's hard to accept a character who's done what she's done and everything as now, like, an actual member of Avengers. Right, if she was off on her own, I think and now she was kind of, like, sometimes they needed her help, and she's like, "Oh, look who's come back."
Yeah, that would be a good use.
But when Captain America's like, "Get on the team. We need your help. Also, don't do anything crazy.
Don't like ruin all of reality.
Yes,
please.
Please keep all of us alive."
Very early on in one of the Avengers comics, she like zaps somebody. Okay. Pietro, I think. I don't remember. And Captain America is like, "I've talked to you about this before. You need to keep a handle on your X power." And I was like, boy, does she.
I think whenever you start, I think there's a reason why all the different like redos or different realities of X-Men, all the cartoons and everything, I think the reason they use her is because even though she leaves in the original comics, there's something very like foundational about her. And, I mean, Stan Lee didn't make her... It wasn't until the, like, late 70s or 80s when they were like, she's Magneto's daughter.
Oh, yeah.
So Stan Lee didn't plan that. But I think because they're, like, they feel like they owe him, there is still that kind of, like, almost parental...
They're connected, yeah.
And I think that gives depth to Magneto. I think that helps Magneto to have kids who eventually are like, "You're crazy.
Yeah.
You've gone too far." And I think it also kind of tells you who Scarlet Witch is, that maybe... You know, she was originally a reluctant villain, and she turned away from that.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, I don't think you can make a new version of the X-Men without including both Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch in that. So I think that's part of the reason. I mean, like you said, of Evolution. That might have been like, I might have even seen her in Evolution before I watched the 90s animated thing. Yeah, I think she's important. I just wish the comics hadn't...
Yeah.
I guess, I don't know. It's weird.
But they've done it before. They did it to Captain Marvel, and they brought her back to
And Captain Marvel,
stability.
After her craziness, she joined the X-Men for a while.
Oh, yeah. What did I see? I saw something. Well, maybe it was a comic where Captain Marvel goes to attack Scarlet Witch.
Okay.
And Rogue stops her and is like, "Hang on a second."
Yeah.
and it was just a brief little thing, but I thought it was really fun.
You might like Uncanny Avengers.
Yeah.
Because she is in there. I mean, Rogue's in there, Scarlet Witch is in there.
I have a couple random facts that I thought were interesting, but they don't really fit in anywhere.
Yeah, share some random facts about Scarlet Witch.
Okay.
How do you choose what's a random fact about Scarlet Witch?
It's not a fact. It's just like things that I saw, and I was like, "Oh, weird."
Her nanny was a cow human.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Like, consistently.
Yeah.
As many times as they redo her
history,
history,
Bova was
there's
in the 90s
always
cartoon.
The cow. Yeah, she was.
Because it's a High Evolutionary.
Yes.
High Evolutionary is a weird character to be connected to.
They
I would not want to be...
locked it in.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's the one thing they've decided doesn't change.
Yeah. Like, out of everything, but definitely don't lose
her
the
dad's
cow
not
person.
Magneto, but yeah,
cow person
cow
all
nanny,
the way.
Important.
That is crucial. Oh, just a stupid thing. In her first Avengers mission, they fight a Minotaur. And they fight a Minotaur in the 2015 thing.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if that was on purpose when they did the 2015.
He must have meant that.
To, like, harken back to that. I just thought that was interesting when I came across that.
I can see why Marvel wants to have her be a witch. Because they don't really have too many... DC Comics has a very strong magic pool of characters, and like you can make whole series just based on their magic universe. And Marvel has only really had Doctor Strange and then like one or two stragglers, but then you get like dumb characters like the Son of Satan, and, you know. And so it's like, yeah, you could get Doctor Strange or you could get Brother Voodoo. So I think they've kind of tried to up their... In a recent Doctor Strange, he collected a bunch of magic people, and I think she was included. So I can kind of see why they want, like, oh, it's magic.
It's just... Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
She would be cool.
It feels lazy to me. Like, I think people genuinely like exploring, like, the world of magic, but I'm so not interested in it that every time it goes that way, I'm like, whatever. Yeah. Oh, she's...
Sorry.
Doing spells.
Yeah, that might... I don't know if that's ever going to change again. I mean...
I don't think... I think in the comics, they're, like, hardcore magic.
Well, if tomorrow I get that call from Marvel, I'll write the issues like,
it.
"Oh, by the way, I am still a mutant. We are still his kids."
Just do one of those little yellow things at the bottom. A note from Eric. BT Dubs. She's
still a mutant. Yep. All right. So that has been our spotlight on Wanda. It's still Maximoff though.
Every time you say Wanda, I think Wanda Sykes. That's a different person.
This wasn't a character spotlight on Wanda Sykes at all. No. This was a character.
A lot of weird parallels, but no.
Yeah. Okay. I see that. This was our spotlight on the Scarlet Witch, Wanda Maximoff, who I guess in the movies, or not in the movies next you'll see her in the show.
Yeah, next will be
WandaVision on whatever Disney Plus is.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm Dusk vs. Tweak everywhere online. And apart from other shows on the Radio Meanwhile Network, I'm the co-host of the podcast, The All the Book Show. Thank you to Prophetic Music for our theme song. Mm-hmm. And please join us for our next episode as we cover the 1999 Gambit ongoing series.
I'm excited.
This was his, if anybody wants to like pick it up, this was he didn't have an ongoing series up until this point. So 99, it started until like 2001. So it's about like 23, 26 issues maybe. Mm-hmm. So if you want to read that before we get to that episode, there you go. Again, you can find more about this show and others like it at our network's website, radiomeanwhile.com. Please follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Previously on X. And please rate, subscribe, and share this show on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.
Bye.